Hello and welcome to the artist talk and studio visit of James English Leary. James is an artist originally from Chicago, but he lives and works in New York. He was founding member of Bruce High Quality Foundation, and he's also a teacher at Cooper Union. He's been with the gallery since almost 4 years. We've had 2 solo exhibitions with him and 2 group shows. So here he is. Hello, James. Still waiting. I don't know if it works. James, did you get it? Ah, now it does. Hi, James.
Hey, how's it going?
Good to see you. How are
Good to
you?
see you too.
How's it going? So you escaped New York and you're in Chicago with your parents.
I escaped from New York about 5 weeks ago. I
Yeah.
saw the writing on the wall and left New York and drove to Chicago, and I've been holed up with my parents and my brother at my parents' house in Chicago for, God, 5 weeks.
How's that going? I mean, I've met your parents. They're really lovely.
It's actually been fine. I mean, we're, you know, lucky and have food and are eating well, and there's space here, and I have space to work, and it's nice to be with my immediate family and know that they're all right. Yeah, that's I under the circumstances, everything is fine. um,
Were
this
you?
is like the most Buddhist of disasters
I
because it
know.
causes everyone to be grateful with sitting in a room and
Having space, I
being
think.
content with the things that you have and learning how to live with yourself.
I know.
Um,
It's been a
so
great
everything,
lesson for a lot of people, I think. I mean,
yeah,
for me, definitely. Um,
yeah,
Not having to go on planes, not having to go to any art fairs. Um,
yeah. Art fairs are probably done, right? Are art fairs ever coming back after this?
Probably in a different way. I mean, who knows if
Yeah,
Art Basel, I doubt it's going to happen in September. There
yeah,
is no way that they're opening on 3rd of September. But
yeah.
who knows what's going to happen. It's definitely a very weird time.
Sure, yeah, crazy.
Yeah, but also good in a way sometimes, it's quite refreshing having time to spend, at home with your family.
Sure.
Yeah,
There's a tremendous opportunity in all of this, obviously, and it's way too early to have any idea what the response is going to be and what the rebuilding is going to be to any of this. And, you know,
yeah, I'm
and
excited to actually,
people joining.
having like we have a talk in like a year, you know, and then let's see what the recap is,
Yeah,
what's going to happen in the next year. We all don't know. It's it's kind of scary in a way.
sure. Yeah.
So were you
How's
able?
everything? No, go on.
Were you able to work now? Did you set up a studio in your parents'
I
house?
I have already sort of been in the habit of traveling and working a lot over the past couple of years, and have done, um, I've done some residencies. I lived in Brazil for a while and worked there. I go to my Spanish gallery, every other summer to work, and so I'm sort of like comfortable just making a little,
Adapting your studio
yeah,
anywhere.
a little go bag and then going and making work for a couple of months.
I always wanted to have you in Austria for a residency.
Yeah,
We
when are
have
you
to
going to
do
start
that.
residency?
I'm working on it.
Yeah. So yeah, I've been making work here,
Well,
and
you
it's
also
been good.
worked in Paris last year. You've always spent like half a year in Paris, right?
Yeah, I spent a bunch of time in Paris and made work there, and that was really great. I think, yeah, it's good. I don't know if it's something, I think it's good because you kind of have to build the studio from scratch and you don't have all your stuff around, and, it's good to do that every once in a while.
Is it kind of a refreshing new start if you go
Yeah,
somewhere and, you
totally.
get a different take on something, maybe?
Totally. I think, I mean, I made a bunch of panels in New York and brought that, I cut out some panels and brought them here because I drove here. So I had some kind of shop things
Mm.
that were done already, and I painted them here. And then, so I don't know. The next phase, depending on how long this thing goes, will be to, get wood delivered here and,
Yeah, because your work is quite physical. When I visited your
yeah.
studio, it's like you're carving the wood yourself. It's quite, yeah.
Yeah. There's a backyard here, so I could get some plywood delivered and set up some sawhorses and cut out some paintings here. But that would be definitely a next level kind of thing.
Mm.
Um, but at the same time, I don't think this is gonna, end,
Soon.
in next week all of a sudden and be the kind of thing where you can just get back to business as normal. But it's good too. I mean, I think, I make these shaped canvases, and wonder if I can turn. Can I
Can I
do
see some of
that?
the new works?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
I've been making these like things like this. Um
Yeah, like this one.
yeah.
I chose my sweater for that painting.
Pinks. Lots
Yeah,
of pinks.
these are great.
Yeah, I've been making these pointing hands.
So a lot of people always ask me questions about why hands, faces, fingers pointing, um, why the shaped canvas.
Yeah, it's just a way to make a painting. I yeah, it's a big question. I guess, I mean, it's not the only work I make. I make, some rectangle and
Yeah.
square shaped paintings. I like this. I like the way that uh there's like a rehearsal and then a construction element in these shaped works, and
Also, they have
they're
something very sculptural to me, once they're more
yeah,
sculptural than, the rectangular works that you have, like
yeah.
the series Lady Chatterley Lovers Lovers, for example.
Sure. I mean, I think those paintings, which are square and or slightly rectangular, I think they're 72 by 66. Um, I don't see those. I see those paintings as being really related to these shaped works. They have kind of tessellating pieces of paper that are glued on and that overlap and deal with a lot of the same issues of what's a real edge versus a depicted edge. I think that's a big thing
Mm.
that the shaped works are about, is about contrasting um, depicted edges with real edges, and depicted space and trompe l'oeil space with real contoured space.
That's
And I think
interesting.
those paintings deal with that too, like the contrast um, of real versus depicted constructions of space, um, which is one of the things I find myself thinking about a lot in my work.
Yeah, we've talked about space a lot in general in paintings and especially also in your works.
Yeah, painting. I think painting is about space
Yeah, I think
always.
this has been one of the most interesting conversations I had with you. But something that I always refer in your paintings as well is like, for me, it's kind of a new generation of paintings that you've started. I don't know, maybe it's my take, but this has always been something that I was very intimidated by your paintings when I saw them first. They're very unique. They're very funny. They're very humorous. You know, the more you look at them, the more you start thinking. And you sometimes always refer as a Rorschach test. I mean, this is an old thing in art. Like, I don't like to point it out too much, because a lot of people say that. But maybe you want to say a couple of words to it, because your paintings always make me think a lot. And like, the more you look at them, the more you understand them. And for some people, it takes them quite a while to actually figure out your works, which I like.
I guess I think that I think a lot of I guess something I think about a lot in with my work and in terms of art history is the way that there has been this anxiety of interpretation around artworks. I mean, ever since, you know, modern art, art has situated itself as this like provocation, and I feel like so much there's so much anxiety surrounding like the forms in art in terms of an audience. You know, like, do you get the thing that it's depicting? Do you understand the references? Do you understand what you're experiencing? And I just find that really interesting and really funny. And I think like a Rorschach test is such a hokey thing at this point. And I think like so much of that psychological language has been not debunked, but sort of problematized. And so I think in a lot of my work, I feel like there's this thing that I'm interested in trying to get to, that's like this satire of those difficult forms that provoke an audience in this way that's sort of like, you know, do you understand the thing? Are you one of the people that understands the thing? And you know, it's like the Ad Reinhardt, there's that great Ad Reinhardt cartoon of in the first cell, there's like the guy in the museum looking at an abstract painting and saying, what do you represent to the painting? And then in the second cell, the painting is personified and saying to the guy, what do you represent? And I just, so much of art like after modern art is framed in these kind of like anxieties about meaning and interpretation and who gets it and who doesn't, and who thinks it's shit and who thinks it's great, and who's inside the club of the audience of the artwork and who's outside of it. And even now, I mean, like, you know, a lot of people who aren't comfortable looking at artworks you know, like constantly preempt anything they would say about artworks by saying, well, I don't really know what I'm talking about, or, you know, well, I don't really know anything about painting or whatever. It's so hard to just trust
your instinct or your feeling.
Yeah, and even I think for experts who, you know, quote unquote experts who, you know, have some basis for knowing how to look at a painting, the thing is always just to, like, you know, look at a thing and sit with it and then try to have an experience with it and analyze that experience and stew in that experience and trust it and challenge it. You know, it still is like a personal thing. And so I don't know if that isn't too murky.
No, I think that was very, very well put and very well said. It's also what you say about abstraction, you know. You said once in an interview that there is no abstraction. you know, there's always, you always try, your mind always tries to find something in an abstract work.
Yeah, I mean, I think, yeah, I mean, there, it's really hard to make shapes that don't refer to things. And it's really hard, and you know, I don't know. I mean, maybe, you know, maybe, well, I don't know. Yeah, it's hard to not create art that only refers to itself and that doesn't become representational and refer
For
to other things. And I think really great abstract art, to me, it feels like it refers primarily to itself and not to this, you know, these other representational um, connotations or whatever.
What's one of your favorite abstract painters?
I've been looking at a lot of Howard Hodgkin
Okay.
recently, the British
Yeah.
painter. Um, I think his paintings are so wonderful right now. I've been looking at a lot of them online. And I think they're kind of great because um, well, he makes it look so easy, and his language is so reduced, you know, and he figured out these things that kind of are very simple and almost feel like a gimmick, but they really work for him, like the thing of making a painting with the frame on, which I feel like is exactly the kind of thing that is so risky because it becomes a gimmick. You know, if he was a contemporary artist, it would be like, oh, you know, the frame guy, the guy that paints on the
The
frame.
frame.
And but it doesn't feel like that. Like all the best devices, it doesn't, you know, stay a gimmick. It opens up into this thing that you know, opens up the space of the painting to all of this new kinds of things and seems to free him and seems to, you know, I think I always feel like when you're looking at work where it feels like the person in an attempt to build a language is jumping through these hoops, like when a person is carrying out things that they don't seem to really enjoy doing, but it feels like, well, I set up this premise and I'm trying to build this language, and to follow through with building this language, I need to, you know, I need to check this box and do this, and that's just part of that's part of
Following.
carrying the thing off. That never feels good. It always feels good when painters or artists are only playing the games that they want to play and are only busying themselves in their work with the things that they care about doing and enjoy doing and are challenged by.
I think that's
So I
very
really like,
important.
yeah, I really like Howard Hodgkin. I can't figure out,
That's
they're so simple, and I can't figure out how he builds them. I mean how he builds the paint. There often it feels like there's like 4 or 5 moves, um, but the way that the different moves and the different planes kind of pitch against each other feels so improbable, and I don't know how he's able to make such an improbable thing out of such a reduced
simple, you know, so
yeah,
simple in a way,
yeah,
and like so
yeah.
strong. I'll post some images after. I don't have any here on my on my phone. Have you? I've seen a really beautiful show, I think 2 years back, where I actually bought a book for you, but I forgot to give it to you last time you visited, from the Chicago Imagism
Mm,
at the South Bank Center. And
yeah,
when I was looking at the show, which was really beautiful, it was, now they're having a bit of a hype, and I've seen there is a show at the MUMOC right now where there are a few works of them as well. But I really had a feeling that they could have, you know, I could see you growing up with, like, surrounded by the group, but maybe that is also wrong.
yeah. I love those painters, and
Yeah.
I don't have. I'm a little wary of these kinds of this kind of biography that's like, you're from Chicago, so you paint like this. Because I think like it's like I grew up with books and the internet, and like regional culture doesn't really exist anymore, I think. But I definitely, I mean, I love those painters, and I do think that there is something about Chicago that is kind of Chicago's very, it's very, it's a very mainstream, working class American city, and I do think there's something kind of pop and something kind of, I don't know, when you look at, like, I think H.C. Westerman was from Chicago. A really good friend of mine, Keegan Monahan,
Oh,
is
Keegan
from
is also from
Chicago.
Chicago. I didn't
He's
know.
from Chicago,
Okay.
and I think, like, I look at him and I see, like, I do see, I mean, his work is very related to those Chicago Imagist painters. I do think that there's something about Chicago that's like, there's a kind of pop, matter of fact pop, um, thing that's very divorced from, um, that's kind of its own American thing. Like, is sort of has more distance from like the European avant-garde than New
Mm,
York does, and doesn't have like the all of the, you know movie entertainment industry stuff that LA has. It's kind of like the big American city that doesn't have, um, a kind of, yeah, I don't know what it is. It's a very muscular, matter of fact, plain post-industrial American city, and it does seem to engender a kind of funny pop, cartoon,
mm.
matter of fact, aesthetic that I do really love, and grew up looking at that stuff, and have not necessarily thought about it so self-consciously or so clearly as an influence, but I love that stuff. So great.
It's interesting. I've never been to Chicago. I need to
Oh,
come
it's
one
great.
day. Yeah.
Chicago's great. It's a great city. It's great. It's very, it's kind of like, it's one of those American cities that was made, after a lot of the, cultural indebtedness to Europe had already passed. So it doesn't have, like Boston and New York and Baltimore, it doesn't have these old parts of the city that feel quasi
Mm.
European. It's completely gridded out. It was destroyed in a fire in 1871, I think, and they completely rebuilt it. So it really
So it's
feels like
very
a new,
new, very
very
industrial.
city. And then all these great architects came and worked there. Mies van der Rohe built some of his most important buildings there. Everyone knows about the architecture of
Yeah.
Chicago, but it really is like this Creole of great pre-modern and modernist and postmodern architecture that's totally, some of it's really funky and amazing. And Chicago's a great city.
Yeah, I can't wait to see.
Got
Um,
a
yeah,
great museum too. The
once
museum,
I know that's what I heard. And you've been, I mean, you told me like even as a kid you've spent a lot of times at
uh,
museums. So whenever you felt, um, how do you describe it? Whenever you felt very angry or aggressive, you tend to go to museums because artworks, calm you
yeah.
down.
Yeah, I still think, I mean, I think growing up with a really good municipal art museum did deeply inform like my idea of, what art is supposed to do and what cities are supposed to do and what art's ultimate audience is. I mean, I think like the best place that artworks can end up is in a municipal museum
Mm,
angry teenagers can go look at paintings. And they're, at all museums now, and the Art Institute included, are have gone in for this like kind of luxury tourism $27 admission thing. But which is totally wrong.
Mm.
And museums should be free or cheap.
Especially for young people.
Yeah, I mean, I just went to that museum like once a week when I was trying to figure out how to paint when I was a teenager, and that collection is just so great. It was, I don't know, there was a moment in America when because of the aspirations of like new money, new American money, these municipal museums were able to buy just incredible collections, and they have great stuff there. It's like their impressionism and post-impressionism is like in some ways better than the Musée d'Orsay. They have like the great Caillebotte painting, they have the great George Seurat painting of people lounging on the
Yeah,
Seine. It's really great.
that's amazing. There,
Yeah.
to have amazing collections, way better than the European museums or some of them. There is the great fortune also about the donation. I think they're trying to change that slowly, that you can deduct, taxes by giving donations and buying art for
Yeah.
institutions.
Yeah.
But something else. So, cruise high quality. Do you want to talk about it, or should we do that another time?
Sure. Yeah.
I mean,
Bruce high
I've
quality.
never been. I never saw any of the exhibitions, unfortunately. But you've been founding member. It was sort of created as um, an alternative to everything you said, and then. So, how did it start?
So Bruce high quality was an artist collective that was started kind of when a bunch of us were still at school in New York at Cooper Union. And it was so the premise of it, or sort of the way that it talked about itself, was that it was an estate, an institution that was an estate for a dead social sculptor that we invented and killed off, named Bruce High Quality, who was sort of a like a kind of larger than life, but fatally self-involved social sculptor, kind of in the tradition of Joseph Beuys and Andy Warhol, like a media obsessed, self-obsessed social sculptor. And so we invented this guy and killed him off, and then you know presented the project through this anonymized framework of the estate, and saw ourselves as or called ourselves the estate arbiters, and use that platform to do a variety of different projects about art politics, art institutions, art education, art economy, and art history, and did a lot of different things. I mean, we did a series of public interventions and performances that sort of were all about the role of public sculpture and public art in the kind of post 9/11 New York cultural municipality. And we did a project when in 2005, when after the Christo Central Park Gates project had happened. Later that year, the Whitney Museum mounted a Robert Smithson retrospective, and one of the things that they did for that retrospective was to realize a proposal he had made for a public sculpture, which was an called Floating Island, and it was an island, kind of trees and shrubs
Yeah.
on a barge floating around New York. So we made like a little boat with a little Christo gate on it and sailed that around in the East River. Or it didn't sail it. It had a little engine and chased around the Robert Smithson Island. So we did things like
Okay.
that, kind of you know,
When was that again? Was it 2005?
2005. Well, yeah, 2005.
Yeah.
And we did a lot of things about gentrification. We mounted a musical that was like a revisionist adaptation of Cats.
Yeah,
Um,
I remember that.
that was all about sort of gentrification, anxiety, and the role that artists played in both exacerbating the problems of gentrification and also being victims of gentrification, and the kind of tortured role that artists had between developers and between people who had been living in neighborhoods for a long time in New York that were getting pushed out. So we did things like that, and then we made discrete artworks. We made sculptures, and eventually
Amazing video works.
lots of videos, lots of videos that were sort of videos and texts that were sort of about the way that art history gets constructed, and that you took different themes and did histories of art through these different themes, like labor or metaphor, or we were really interested in like the power dynamics and emotional dynamics in like patron artist relations. We did a lecture at some point called Art History with Benefits that was about the the quasi familial and quasi sexual relationship between artist and patrons. Like patrons kind of fall in love with artists but are also kind of parental figures. And
That's amazing.
so we did a lot of things like that. We did a lot of things about and labor. Plugging in.
Sorry, I didn't hear. Say again.
We did a lot of things about art. What is the relationship between art and labor? We did a lot of different things, and we also mounted exhibitions, and we did a alternative biennial at one point that was sort of a super democratic biennial that always had like a couple hundred people in it. And then I guess the big thing that we did was we started an art school, like
The university, right?
experimental. Yeah.
Does that still exist in a way?
It's not existing right now, but I think like I hope that it would maybe
Continue.
be able to continue to do projects. I mean, Bruce, I don't think of Bruce as over. I think of it as kind of dormant. I don't know. Other people, I'm sure, have their opinions about this, but
I think because it was so big when you started it. I mean, you were part of the Whitney Biennial, MoMA PS1 show. I mean, I remember it was just really, really big. But it still does exist. And are you still in touch with the people who run it? Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we're all friends still and talk about doing things. It's like... I think for us it was also, or I don't know, for me it was also, you have a certain kind of headspace when you're in your 20s and you have nothing going on in your life, and you're able to just throw yourself into something, and then, and then everyone starts to have different things going on, and it's harder to organize things. But I have fantasies about, I mean, there are things that I would like to do that I know not to say I could only do them through Bruce, but that really makes sense as Bruce High Quality projects. There was a sense that because there was a group of people around a table talking through these things, that that there was a context to deal with certain things like certain institutional questions or historical questions that are just much weirder to deal with as an individual. I mean, it's one thing if you're an academic and you say, okay, I'm going to do a lecture on the history of, the construction of value in art. That's like, maybe you can do that, but it seems a lot weirder to me because I'm not really an academic. But in the context of Bruce, it was really
You're not
like,
an individual. You're more an,
yeah,
in
we
a
would,
way.
we would sort of like approach things. We were really fond of that Jack Rancière book, The Ignorant Schoolmaster, where he sort of sets out as a teacher to teach things that he doesn't know. And we were really fond of just, trying to find a good problem, a good question or a good problem, and then giving a couple months to it and talking about it a lot, and then making something that could be discursive but would ultimately straddle the line between a discursive project and an artwork, and that didn't necessarily bear the same burden that an academic text might, which is important. It's not to
I
say
think
that
it's more
that's
interesting sometimes,
yeah. So
Do you still write a lot? Do you still do a
yeah,
lot
I
of
still write,
writing?
but I'm interested in writing fiction now. I think it's hard to write about art, and it's hard to write about art. It's hard to write about ideas in a direct form, I think.
But I loved one of my really favorite essays is the one of Lady Chatterley, Lovers, Lovers. I've read it again today, and I've read it a lot of times in the past, and it made me really happy reading it again.
Thanks.
And because I also do have I did have almost all of the works of that series in the gallery, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Apart from one or two new ones that you've made.
Yeah.
I'll show you work, wait.
I can hear the
That's
birds
it.
chirping in
I
your
know.
backyard.
They're going crazy, the birds. Not as
Oh yeah,
much
there it
today.
is.
That was one of the first.
Yeah. God, it's amazing. We're all learning this new format of
I know.
talking, pictures, people.
I
It's
know, I'm
wild.
still learning. It's quite, it's challenging.
Yeah, there's that painting.
Yeah, that was one of the first we sold also. It's a really good one. And then what else do we have? We have the
Oh
exhibition
yeah.
view.
Oh yeah.
I think Instagram is going to work on that format because it can do way better. I think you should be up. I should be down. You can't change that. I think.
Well,
But
one thing I think is really interesting in all this is because the art, contemporary art is kind of this bundle of really different things. When you go and see a group show, it's often a painting, a photograph, a pile of stuff in the corner, some people doing some things, some social project. There's a lot of different things that fall under the rubric of quote unquote contemporary art, and that get bundled together in biennials and in exhibitions. And I think as the art world temporarily transitions to this online thing, I sort of have been wondering, what forms will survive that better than others? And I think, I've been reading a lot of novels, and I think this is if ever there was an era for novels and novel writing and novel consuming, it feels like this. Novels are something that will completely continue throughout all of this to be written in an unabated way, and everyone's got lots of time to read novels.
I
So I
know.
would put novels at one end of the least harmed by the plague, and you know, confinement and internet overload, and probably like theater, you know, and ballet
There,
on the other side, which are
opera,
completely, or what?
opera.
Opera, it's really
Yeah.
bad. And then a lot of things I think are in the middle. You know, I think painters will keep, you know, making paintings, and people have gotten pretty comfortable at looking at paintings online, even though you know, there's a lot of reason to be kind of nervous about getting too comfortable looking at paintings on like a little pocket computer. But painting will probably be fine. But I'm just saying, like, you know, because exhibitions and because space has been this thing that bundled these really, really kind of actually very different practices together, you know, I wonder maybe that starts to change, you know, at some point if we really go, you know, I don't know, like not to be dramatic, but if we go a year or 2 years or a couple of years where we can't have big gatherings of people, like, you know, does performance art and painting really start to move apart? Or, you know, I don't know.
It's a good question. I mean, or statement. I mean, you know, who knows? Then probably the painting is going to survive better than performance art. Maybe video art is making more sense
Yeah.
after, you know, because that's, you know, it's a medium that is very, you know, good for online.
Yeah.
But what I've realized, what I really, you know, think is great, like what we're doing now, we probably wouldn't have started so soon. I think the whole, you know, I think it's very interesting, or sometimes even more interesting than doing an artist talk in the gallery, you know, where someone has to physically come and watch. You know, it's more intimate. It's, you know, you don't have the or often the possibility to go and see an artist's studio or have like a conversation with an artist you admire. So I think Johann König has also done a great thing with these live conversations, and I think there are a lot of great things happening
Yeah. Yeah.
online on the other
Um,
side, you know, to start or to keep the dialogue going. You know, we are not open as a gallery, so, you know, I think it's great to, you know, at least try to connect with the artists you're working with, you know, people who are interested in the program.
yeah. Yeah. It is great. Thank you for, you know, asking
Well,
me to
thank
do that.
you for being part. Thank you for taking your time. I know it's still early in
Yeah, it's good.
Chicago.
Got me out of bed, and I feel I'm ready now to face the
Ready
day.
to go. Amazing.
Here, I'll show
Thank you.
you before you go. I'll show you this embarrassing thing. It's a
Please.
painting of me made, made by my parents' friend Joe
Oh
Roof.
my God, can you go back? That's
Yeah,
great.
when I was a
So
kid.
cute. That's
It's a
very
little
cute.
bonus.
Also, Faye has
Okay.
been saying hi many times already. Hi,
Hi.
Faye. We miss you. I think I'm having a talk with her at the end of the week.
Okay, great.
So
I'll tune into that.
please do. Okay. Have a
Okay.
great day.
Good to talk to you. Be safe and
You too.
be sane. Safe and
Okay.
sane.
Bye bye.